us off at number 10 is the Busby chair. The year was 1702 when the British killer Thomas Busby was executed for taking the life of his father-in-law. As the story goes, Thomas was strangely obsessed and protective of his beloved chair, and killed his father-in-law after he found him sitting in the chair without permission. Before his execution was finalized, Thomas was given one final request, and he chose to have one last drink in his chair. And according to the legend, his last words were, quote, "May death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." Now, of course, no one took this entirely seriously at first. He was a man facing death and was bound to spew a concerning thing, or plus he was known to be a liar and a killer, so no one really took his words to heart. That was until people actually started dying. After Busby's death, multiple reports arose of one tragedy after another, and each of them came from someone who had sat in the killer's beloved chair. One man was found hanging outside the Busby Stoop Inn after sitting in the chair, and many soldiers who sat in the chair during World War II would die days later. Could it be that he was so protective of this chair as it wasn't from our version of the universe? Who's to say? But nowadays, for the safety of everyone, the chair lives in the England Thirsk Museum, hanging from the ceiling so that no one else can ever accidentally be cursed by the evil seat. Next up at number 9, the Hope Diamond. As the legend goes, back in 1666, a French merchant obtained this beautiful blue diamond after illegally plucking the gem from a Hindu idol and selling it to King Louis XIV, a sacrilegious crime for which he was later mauled to death by dogs for committing. Fast forward a few years to the French Revolution, and the cursed gem was allegedly stolen and subsequently disappeared for years, only reappearing in the 1800s. Could it be that it made its way into another dimension during the French Revolution, only to reappear and continue causing misfortune to anyone who possesses the cursed jewel? I mean, there's really no way of truly knowing, but as soon as it made its way back into society, the jewel wasted no time ruining lives, and has routinely been blamed for several tragedies over the years. Some of the misfortunes include the loss of a great fortune, people's deaths, and people taking their own lives, while some even say Marie Antoinette's death could have been linked to her possession of the cursed. Nowadays, you can find this cursed object safely stowed away behind glass in the Smithsonian, where it can no longer wreak havoc on the public. Coming in at number 8, the Crying Boy painting. Originally created by the artist Giovanni Bragolin, the painting of the Crying Boy turned out to be a national sensation, and in turn became a mass-produced print that could be found for sale just about anywhere across Britain. But despite being found in hundreds of homes across England from the 1950s onward, it wasn't until 1985 when people became aware of the curse. You see, what was happening at the time was a strange pattern of houses catching on fire, all of which had two things in common. They all had purchased a print of the Crying Boy that was hanging on their wall, and in each of the houses the print was found in the rubble, completely unscathed by the flames. Some say it could have merely been a coincidence, but the Essex firefighters who found the prints believed that something beyond our realm was keeping them safe from the burning houses.
Number 7. Deja vu. Have you ever been walking down the street and gotten the sudden feeling like you'd done that before, even though you haven't? This is a phenomenon that is known as deja vu, or already seen. As of yet, there is no real scientific explanation for why people all over the world experience these feelings, and there are theories that range from memory problems to glitches in the Matrix. People who believe that deja vu is evidence of parallel universes describe it like this. Think of a radio where you can only hear one frequency at a time. The parallel universes beside us are at different frequencies. However, it's possible that for one small moment the universes might vibrate at the same frequency and become in sync. Since parallel universes are all supposedly just slightly different, when these in sync moments happen and you believe that you've already had this conversation before, it's possible that you feel that way because you did, just in a parallel universe. Number 6. The double slit experiment. Okay, this one is very sciencey, so bear with me. The double slit experiment was performed in the 1920s and seemed to offer convincing evidence of potential multiple parallel realities. The theory proposes that if tennis balls were fired at a wall through a single slit, then the marks on the wall would line up with the slit. So if you created two slits, it would create two lines on the wall. wall. And if you fired waves through the wall, they would go through the splits, but still continue to spread out and leave multiple lines on the wall. And electrons should theoretically act in the same way that tennis balls do, but they didn't. They also made multiple lines as though they had been interacting with each other in the way that the waves did. But even when fired one at a time, it still made two sets of waves. For this to happen, it would mean that each electron somehow managed to travel through both slits. When they tried to film the electrons, they instead went back to just forming two lines like tennis balls. So this suggests that while parallel universes may be interacting with our own, we just don't have the technology to see it. Number 5, the blue rock. Alright, after that, let's go to something way more simple. In fact, let's go to something as simple as a rock. In 1990, in Sierra Leone, West Africa, an archaeologist found a puzzling bright blue stone. When it was sent for studies, it was found that it was not similar to anything that could be found on Earth, and it was determined that it was not from this planet at all. One person who once held the stone said, "It was perplexing and I had no idea what I was looking at, and I had no point of reference to compare it to anything else I had previously seen or handled before." Parts of this stone have come into the possession of many collectors over the years, and it is incredibly highly valued, likely because many people believe that, similarly to the London Hammer, this is an artifact that has traveled to our own Earth from a parallel universe. Number 4, the Mandela effect. The term the Mandela effect first came around in 2009, when a woman named Fiona realized that she and many others shared a false memory of Nelson Mandela having died in prison, when in reality he was still alive. She created a website to explain her observance of this phenomenon, shocked by just how many people all over the globe could possibly share this false memory. Over the years, many people have come together to share different examples of this Mandela effect. Some of the most famous ones being the spelling of the Berenstain Bears title, Darth Vader saying "Luke, I am your father" instead of "No, I am your father," and Curious George having a tail. Many people believe that a possible explanation for this is that the false memories are correct, but they're correct in a parallel universe, the memories bleeding over into our own world, as how else could so many people share this same fake memory? Number 3, the cold spot. Alright, back to science once again. When the Big Bang created our universe, the wavelengths of light expanded, changing the color and temperature of the universe to what we now perceive as black, creating the cosmic microwave background which maps the creation of our universe according to the Big Bang. While scientists were studying this background, they discovered what they referred to as the cold spot, being the size of 1.8 billion light years. While also being colder, it apparently also contains 20% less matter than it should. So how could they possibly explain the existence of this cold spot and why it is the way that it is? Well, experts believe that this is evidence of a parallel universe having crashed into ours through quantum entanglement, impact forcing energy out of the area and leaving behind the cold spot. Number 2, the Hadron Collider. Researchers at the Super Collider in Switzerland started researching in 2015, hoping to find evidence of alternate universes. They have done various different tests trying to find these parallel universes that would not exist in the visible 3 dimensions of our own universe, but instead be made up of dimensions that we cannot perceive. One scientist theorized that the Hadron Collider could reveal particles that could only exist in these other dimensions, and being able to see them would give us almost undeniable evidence of the existence of parallel universes in line with our own. She said that these particles would have the exact same properties of particles in our own universe, but would have greater mass. All of this is still theoretical right now, but plenty of theoretical things from the past have been discovered and made reality, so it may not be long. Number 1, the Taured Traveler. In 1954, a European plane landed in Tokyo. On the plane was a man who spoke several different languages, and he told the people there that he was visiting on business. He then gave them his passport, which said that he was coming from a place called Taured. If you've never heard of this country, then don't worry, you're not alone. That's because it doesn't actually exist, and it's a fictional country that is in between the borders of France and Spain. The man's passport was visa stamped, and he even provided a bank statement from the Taured Bank. His documents were taken and held in airport security while the man was left in a guarded hotel room waiting for police to arrive. But when they got there, the man was gone. People believe that this man was a visitor from a parallel universe where European history was different and led to the creation of the country of Taured.
At number 10, a real-life pocket dimension. So there are some super cool advancements happening right now at Harvard as scientists are doing some mind-blowing experiments, including creating a whole new universe. Well, okay, granted, it's inside of a computer, but still, they're messing around with different starting conditions and tweaking the laws of physics to see what the effects it has on the formation of the universe. Kind of like playing a giant cosmic video game. But here's the twist. The better we get at simulating our own universe, the more we start wondering if our own reality is just a big simulation too. I mean, okay, just think about it. If we can simulate a universe in a lab, who's to say someone or something didn't do the same to us? It's all a bit mind-bending. Like, are we living in a computer program created by super advanced beings, or is this base reality? Who knows? Maybe we're all just part of somebody else's wild experiment. At number 9 is this artifact from hell. The fiery pits of hell in many beliefs is thought to be a different realm, or in other words, a parallel universe. Yeah, it's a stretch, but whatever. Some say that Aleister Crowley, this dude who dabbled in mysticism back in the day, tried to chat with spirits from this realm, and legend has it that he listened to these spirits and, using their specific instructions, made a sort of scribe called the Enochian tablets. These glass tablets are etched all over with satanic sigils, which supposedly help strengthen the means of communication with the other side, kind of like a phone signal booster for the dead. Now, although these artifacts were made by some crazy dude here on Earth, the instructions which the cursed objects were designed with are thought to have somehow made their way from another dimension, aka hell. Some folks believe these objects can bring bad juju and even open doors to unwanted visitors from the great beyond. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and hitting that notification bell. It helps the video get seen by more people, and it's free, and do it. Just do it. Just do it. At number 8 is aliens. So not so long ago, the US government and the Pentagon basically came out and said, hey, those things flying around that we tried to tell you were weather balloons, well, they're real and we actually have no clue what they are. They call them unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP for short, but it's basically just fancy talk for UFOs. Now here's the kicker. Nobody's got a clue where these things are from. Well, it's more probable that they're from outer space, like aliens cruising by for a visit. There's no reason they couldn't have come from another dimension, like a parallel universe. I mean, the way these things fly and completely disregard and just flat out ignore our laws of physics is like literally nothing we've ever seen before. So, I mean, who's to say? Another theory suggests that these objects aren't spaceships coming from alternate universes, but are actually the physical result of an extra-dimensional being or object passing through our third-dimensional plane. The interdimensional UFO hypothesis suggests that these sightings are the result of experiencing other dimensions that coexist separately alongside our own, and the UFOs are just our 3D brain failing to comprehend the extra-dimensional object. So who knows, maybe we've got some interdimensional tourists checking us out right now. But hey, that's just a theory.
In our 7th spot today, we have the stop sign. Again, another item that just makes me uncomfortable. Someone decided to create a lowercase stop sign, and it looks like it's like, stop, no, just stop. Like it's too gentle. As a wise movie once said, no, stick to the stuff you know. It's better by far to keep things as they are. Don't mess with the flow. Stick to the status quo. If you know what movie that's from, I automatically love you. But maybe this person was driving around in another universe. Who knows? In our 6th spot today, we have the Oumuamua artifact. Hopefully I pronounced that right, because in another video I didn't, so now I'm changing the pronunciation. Let me know if I get it right, just be gentle, folks. In 2017, this object was found flying by in our solar system. Now it's quite weird. It looks like a space rock, but it's not a comet or asteroid. It's too small and oddly shaped to be an asteroid. This thing is long. In fact, this is now the most elongated known space object. Not only that, but astronomers were shocked by the condition of it. Astronomers thought that the first space rock to enter our solar system would be a ball of ice and rocks like a comet. But this isn't one. Now, not only is it not shaped like one, but there's usually a cloud of dust and gas surrounding comets, and this object just doesn't have that. But before scientists could study it too much, it left our solar system. All we know is that the strange object came from another solar system. Or maybe a different universe, and that's why it's so weird and unlike anything we've ever seen before. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the archless McDonald's. Imagine this, okay? You're hungry, you're driving down a road, madly looking for places to stop and eat, and that's when you see it. Off in the distance, you see 2 golden arches, and you know exactly what awaits you. the one and only McDonald's. Except whatever universe this is in, McDonald's only has one arch. Like hello, it's not Nick Donald's, it's Mick. So stop, okay? Or maybe someone messed up with the designing this restaurant, I don't know. Also, since when does McDonald's sell just bags of ice? Like look at the sign. Bag of ice, $1. I mean it's a steal nonetheless, but still, that's odd on its own as well. In our fourth spot today we have the Ulfbert sword. Now this is something scientists like to call an out-of-place object. And that's because the sword dates back from around 800 to 1000 AD. Which is shocking since they didn't have technology to make such swords back then. Swords like this were made 800 years later during the Industrial Revolution. Not only that, but its carbon content is 3 times higher than other swords of its time. It also suggested that in order to make this sword, iron ore had to have been heated to at least 3000 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Again, they didn't have that technology to do that back then. So many people are perplexed. Well, there are a bunch of theories. One is that it was dropped by a time traveler, or 2, it might have come from a parallel universe. One that is far more advanced than ours. But let me know your theory in the comments below. In our third spot today we have Lost and Found. A number of people on Reddit have shared stories in which they have lost something only for it to reappear in a place where it's impossible to. So let me explain. So one man said that he was with his cousin at Home Depot. Before they went in, the cousin grabbed his wallet, but he didn't have any pockets, so he asked the narrator if he could put his wallet inside his pocket so that he didn't have to carry it around. He agreed and he zipped it into his track pants. After shopping around at Home Depot for a bit, they went to check out, but his wallet wasn't in the track pants. So they retraced their steps thinking maybe it fell out, but nothing. So they decided just to go back to the car and return to the store later. When they got to the car, lo and behold, the wallet was on the dashboard. Which is wild because the cousin literally handed him the wallet and he zipped it into his pants. Now, one person believes that what happened was the universe glitched, and maybe in another reality, the man just left his wallet on the dashboard. Somehow, those universes merged, hence why the wallet was on the dash. Now, it's all confusing how this stuff works, but that's me explaining it the most basic way possible. In our second spot, we have the little dino-looking figures. In 1944, thousands of little dino-looking figures were dug up in Mexico. Only problem is that the pieces date back to 2500 BCE, a time when no dinosaurs were roaming around and people couldn't have possibly known about dinosaurs then. This is all according to scientists. So were there some other creatures that roamed the earth back then that we don't know of? Or is there a time-traveling paleontologist out there? Imagine that, like Ross from Friends also being a time traveler. I love that. I don't know, or the object is from another universe. And in our number one spot today we have the ring. Now this next individual has a similar story to the Home Depot boys. So for her, she was washing the dishes one day when she heard a clink in her sink. Her ring that she took off when she was doing the dishes had slipped and fell into the sink and down the drain. Now, it was just a cheap one, so she wasn't too concerned. It wasn't like her wedding ring. So she decided to just go on about her day. In the end, she forgot that the ring was even there. That was until a week later when she was putting on her shoes and felt something poking her toe. She emptied out her shoe and her ring clanked to the floor. So somehow, the ring went from being in her sink drain to in her shoe. Someone explain that to me. I don't know, maybe house elves are real. Starting off this countdown we have the deck of cards. Now, I don't know about you, but normal deck of cards don't have number 1 cards. In replace, they have aces. But would you look at that? This odd deck had 1s, which makes me very uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but I've never seen this before. If we're playing Go Fish and you whip out a 1, I'm leaving, I'm sorry. Jokes aside, we have decks with aces because they can serve as the highest card or lowest. So it can serve as a 1 or more than 1. That's why we don't have 1s, according to Google, don't quote me. So I don't know where this person got their cards from, but it just seems wrong. In our 9th spot today we have the knockoffs. Sometimes brand name pieces can be expensive and we want the same or similar item but cheaper. That's where knockoff brands come into play. Take a look at these cereals. They're so similar, yet so different. So we got cocoa rice instead of cocoa puffs, we got honey nut crispy oats instead of honey nut Cheerios, fruit rounds instead of Fruit Loops, marshmallows and stars instead of Lucky Charms, cookies instead of Cookie Crisp, and lastly, Kids Crunch instead of Captain Crunch. Now if I saw an aisle filled with those, I think I was transported to another universe. In our 8th spot today we have the map. Now let's get to a serious one. In 1929, a group of historians discovered something pretty strange. It was a map from 1513 written on the skin of a gazelle. It was created by a well-known admiral of the Turkish Navy. Well, what's odd is that the map included Europe and North Africa, the coast of Brazil, several islands, and even Antarctica, which was not discovered until 300 years later. Not only that, but it was said that Antarctica was not covered in ice. The last time that occurred was more than 6,000 years ago. So this whole thing just doesn't make any sense. How did this man map a continent that's been covered by ice for the last 6,000 years? Maybe he's from a parallel universe, or maybe the map is.
Coming in at number 7, a blindfolded doll. In June of 2014, a creepy doll was found on the side of a busy road in Singapore. The doll was left under a tree, blindfolded by a piece of cloth that was covered in Arabic that read Bismillah, meaning in the name of Allah. I mean, isn't that just a recipe for disaster? After the doll's discovery, a mysterious post appeared on Reddit. It claimed that the doll was known to be possessed by an evil entity, and then it could walk and even talk on its own. Apparently the original owner was so afraid the doll was gonna kill her or hunt her down if she tried to give it away that she decided to blindfold it to make sure it couldn't see where she went after she left it abandoned. And for good measure, she wrote the Arabic phrase in hopes that it would keep the evil cursed trapped within. According to the witnesses who found the doll on the road, it mysteriously vanished not long after it was found. And many believe that the curse was passed on to someone who found it and unknowingly removed the curse trapping blindfold. At the moment, no one actually knows where the cursed doll is, and some even think it could be some kind of evil entity from a parallel universe that's using the doll as a host to wreak havoc on our world. Coming in at number 6, the Delphi Purple Sapphire. Often referred to as the cursed amethyst, as, funnily enough, it's not a sapphire. The Delphi Purple Sapphire was a beloved stone once held safely in the Temple of Indra. That was until English Colonel W. Ferris looted it from the temple during the Indian Rebellion in 1857, and brought it back with him to England. However, Ferris soon regretted his decision, as not long after his return home, he quickly began losing his fortune, and his entire family started facing bad luck at every corner. At first, the family blamed the financial hit on a bad investment, but after one of their friends took their own life after holding the stone in their hands, they began to fear that some unseen force could be sabotaging them. And it wasn't just Ferris's family that reaped its misfortunes. The following owner, author Edward Heron Allen, had such bad luck that he tried 3 times to get rid of the stone by throwing it into a nearby river, only for it to make its way back into his possession each time. Eventually, Edward decided to lock up the stone in a box and attempt to seal its powers away, and even shipped it off to his bankers with a set of strict instructions to not open the box until after his death. But London's Natural Museum of History got wind of this so-called cursed stone, and Edward gave in, giving it to them, provided they did not open the box until 3 years after his death, and that his daughter may never be permitted to touch it. The museum followed their strict instructions and waited their due time before setting it out on display, and they quickly discovered Edward was not exaggerating his claims. The museum curator, who had handled the stone a total of 3 times, says each time something awful has happened to him. Once he even got kidney stones after transporting the stone for an afternoon. Coming in at number 5, the Bassano vase. As the legend goes, the Bassano vase was a gift for a 15th century bride on her wedding day, but tragically the bride never made it down the altar as she was killed the eve before her wedding, still clutching her beloved gift. It's said the bride vowed revenge for never being able to reach the altar and marry, and many believe the curse lives inside the vase, as each member of her family who took possession of it after her tragic death died soon after. But the strangest thing about this cursed object is that it vanished from the public eye for literal centuries. Somewhere between the 15th century and 19 1988, the vase's location was unknown until it popped up at an auction in Lyra and sold for $4 million. Could it be that the vase was in another universe all those years, honing its evil powers and waiting for the right time to return and wreak havoc? I mean, maybe. The vase was allegedly sold with a note that read, "Beware, this vase brings death," and the man who bought the vase at the 1988 auction reportedly died soon after. Then the next man who bought it was a doctor who died 3 months later. In fact, if the reports are true, the longest anyone has ever been able to withstand the evil vase before succumbing to the curse is 3 months. As of today, it's unclear just exactly where the vase is, but it's allegedly been placed in police custody to try and avoid any more unneeded deaths. Coming in at number 4, Anguished Man Painting. Set aside the fact that this painting already just looks like you shouldn't trust it, the story behind it only confirms its haunting exterior. Apparently, a man named Sean Robinson inherited the painting from his grandmother and, charmed by its uniqueness, decided to hang it up in his house. But not long after the painting was in his possession, Sean began sensing that something was off. The family was experiencing creaking doors in the middle of the night, saw the shadow of a man lurk around their bedroom, and would hear blood-curdling screams coming from downstairs that sounded as if someone was being killed. This, understandably, concerned both Sean and his wife, and so they decided to do a bit of investigating about the origins of the painting to see if they could find out where his grandmother had gotten it from. Well, after a bit of sleuthing, they came across a story that said the painting was created by a very disturbed man who allegedly painted the picture mixing his own blood with the oil paints before immediately taking his own life upon completion of the piece. Sean and his wife, believing that the painter was haunting the artwork, decided to hide it away in their basement to keep his spirit at bay. I mean, if it were me, I would probably have taken it out of my house, but hey, to each their own. Coming in at number 3, Women from Lem statue. Nicknamed the Goddess of Death, this cursed limestone statue was first unearthed back in 1878 in Lem, Cyprus. Estimated to date back somewhere around 3500 BC, it's unknown who created the statue or what purpose it may have been intended to serve at the time of its creation, but it is believed to have been owned by 4 different families, all of whom died within a few years of obtaining the artifact. It said first up was Lord Elefant, who 6 years after acquiring the statue died along with all 7 members of his family. Then was Ivor Benucci, whose entire family died within 4 years, followed by Lord Thompson Knoll, and once again his entire family perished within 4 years. For a while after that, the statue seemingly vanished until it wound up in the hands of Sir Alan Beaverbrook and his family, who, as I'm sure you can all predict, died within a few years. Now, where was it hiding those few years? That is the million-dollar question that has never been discovered. Some conspiracy believers think it could have been another universe, but we will never truly know. Coming in at number 2, the Dybbuk box. Back in 2001, a man named Kevin Maris purchased the box from an estate sale. When Kevin bought the item off the granddaughter of the woman who died, she carefully instructed him to never open it, just as her grandmother had told the whole family for years. Kevin agreed, suspiciously, and took it back to his antique shop, placing it in the basement. But the box wasted no time, unleashing paranormal activity all around. The next day, Kevin went downstairs to find all the lights smashed, and his employees were terrified, saying they had heard unruly screaming coming from the basement for hours. Now, for whatever godforsaken reason, Kevin decided the box would be a great gift for his mom, so he decided to open it. Inside, he found a note that read "Shalom," 2 locks of hair, a candlestick holder, and some dried rosebuds. But unknowingly, Kevin also released the demon inside. One day, his mother surprised him by dropping by his shop, so he gave her the gift, only to come back minutes later to her sitting in silence and unresponsive. After rushing her to the hospital, they discovered she had suffered from a severe stroke. After this, he began taking the curse more seriously, and so wanting to keep his family safe, he tried to sell it at his shop. But anytime anyone bought it, they would promptly return it, saying there was a deep darkness living inside the item. And last up in the number 1 spot is Ötzi the Iceman. Discovered in 1991 by 2 German hikers in the Ötztal Alps, Ötzi is an incredibly well-preserved mummy of a man dating back to around 3300 BC. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Are mummies inherently cursed and evil? No. But am I ever surprised when one turns out to be? Also no. Apparently, after the Iceman's discovery in 1991, the forensic scientist on the case, Rainer Henn, who also happened to be the first scientist to touch the cursed mummy, died in 1992 en route to a conference where he was planning to report his findings. Shortly after, one of the mountaineers who helped Dr. Henn to reach Otzi's remains died when a large rock fell and blew into his skull. Plus, the journalist who filmed Otzi's extraction ended up dying of a brain tumor, and it only gets worse from there. One of the hikers that originally discovered the mummy, Helmut Simon, disappeared for some time only to be found at the base of a 300-foot cliff, and the man who found his corpse died while attending his funeral. Plus, Conrad Spindler, who was at the time the leading expert on the Iceman, went on record claiming that the curse was a hoax, and that if it were true, he would be the next one to die, only to be found dead days later. Lastly, one of the other scientists who discovered too much about Otzi was found dead in his home with no reasonable explanation for his passing. So, after 7 deaths from people that either too much about Otzi or questioned the curse, I can safely say I never want to see this mummy as long as I live.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is the mecca when it comes to mysterious disappearances and rumors and urban legends, so of course it had to make it onto this list. The triangle, which sits in between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda, earned its deadly reputation starting back in the 1970s. Since then, there has been about 80 aircrafts and 60 boats that have gone missing in the triangle, which only fueled rumors that there was some sort of force or supernatural cause that was making this area one where people would often go missing. There have been intense electrical forces and tunnel-like clouds reported in the triangle, which some believe is the cause for the disappearances, some others believe it's weather patterns, some believe it's the entrance to a parallel universe or a place where aliens like to abduct their victims, and some people like to dismiss the idea that there's any sort of mystery at all. At this point, exactly what is going on with the Bermuda Triangle remains a mystery. In our number 9 spot today we have the Oregon Vortex. Just off of Interstate 5 in southern Oregon lies what is called the Oregon Vortex. According to local legend, it is said that this area and the strange and mysterious stories surrounding it aren't just modern legends, but that perhaps it stems back further. People have said that the stories of the Oregon Vortex actually stem back to when indigenous Americans referred to it as the Forbidden Land. It is said that during these times, people traveling on horses would often find that their horses would be refusing to go into the area, so clearly something strange was going on in there that was spooking the animals. Scientists have speculated that the land might contain some kind of crossed magnetic lines that produce some sort of force field, but whatever it really is, the place is truly strange. Things appear very differently here. It's sort of like an optical illusion. The area is basically a parallel universe in itself. In our number 8 spot today we have the Challenger Deep. The Challenger Deep is the deepest known point in our ocean, around 10,900 meters deep. It is located in the Pacific Ocean in the southern part of the Mariana Trench, and because of its location, lack of light, and immense pressure, it hasn't been explored very much. The extreme environment has certainly set up for there to be a whole host of species that we know absolutely nothing about, but it is not an area that can be easily explored by humans. The Challenger Deep has only been visited 4 times and only for short periods of time, so there is so much more that is waiting to be uncovered at this deep, dark part of our ocean, and I don't know about you, but I feel like there are insane amounts of ocean creatures that could fully be aliens. They are so strange and interesting and unique, so who in the world knows what really lurks down there?
At number 7, the Man from Taured. Let's take a break from space and talk about a seriously bizarre occurrence that basically proves the existence of beings from parallel universes visiting us, whether intentionally or accidentally. So it's July 1954 at the Tokyo airport. This guy shows up, but his passport says he's from a place called Taured. Now, the passport looked genuine with all the security features and everything, except for the fact that there's no place on Earth called Taured. And get this, his money was from a bank that nobody knew, and the company he claimed to work for had no records of his existence. Even the hotel he booked seemed to have never heard of him. Now, here's where it gets even weirder. By the next day, he had completely disappeared, like poof. Vanished into thin air. Now, where was this dude from? Was it a parallel universe mix-up? I mean, imagine a world where Taured exists, but not here. Maybe he accidentally hopped from this world to ours through some weird space-time hiccup? And maybe the government abducted him. Maybe. I mean, maybe lizard people, I don't know. At number 6 is the Bermuda Triangle of Space. So imagine you're an astronaut chilling up there in the International Space Station, just doing your thing, when suddenly, bam, you get hit by this crazy burst of light that wakes you up from your snooze, even though your eyes are shut tight. Well, that's what some space peeps experience when they cruise through this area called the South Atlantic Anomaly, or SAA for short. Sort of like the Bermuda Triangle, but in space. Now, what causes this cosmic alarm clock is our planet's magnetic field isn't perfectly lined up, so it messes with the rings of charged particles called the Van Allen radiation belts. These belts hang around Earth, but there's a spot right over the South Atlantic where they get super close to the surface, like 200 kilometers close, which, I mean, isn't that close by our means, but relatively speaking. When the space station rolls through this zone, computers go haywire, astronauts see random flashes of light, thanks to the radiation tickling their eyes, and even the trusty Hubble telescope takes a break from stargazing. At number 5 is the miniature black hole created in a lab. Just like that Simpsons episode where a black hole created by a hadron collider starts off as a cute little guy before it eventually consumes all of Springfield and eventually the entire planet, scientists are well underway in creating a black hole right here on Earth. I mean, okay, not the scary, like, universe gobbling type, but like one that lets us peek into the secrets of space. As it turns out, making one in a lab is a huge goal for scientists, aiming to unlock mysteries about gravity and the teeny tiny new world of quantum mechanics. And this opens up all kinds of possibilities as we attempt to learn more about extra dimensions. Now picture a universe having more dimensions beyond the 3 of space and the 1 of time that we're used to. And in these extra dimensions, which would be imperceivable to our 3D monkey brains, gravity would be way stronger. So if we could create a black hole in a lab, it could open a portal to these other dimensions. Now, don't get too worried about the black hole, you know, sucking everything up, because it wouldn't really do that. Even if we could create a teeny black hole, it would disappear in like a flash, not able to sustain itself with its own mass. But the real mind-bending thing is that if we could make a proper black hole in a lab, it might help us crack the code on these hidden dimensions. At number 4 is the mirror dimension. If you thought the last entry was crazy, just wait to hear about this. Imagine if we could open a door to a parallel universe, one where everything is similar but also kind of different. Now, allow me to explain. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory wants to shoot a bunch of tiny particles through a 50-foot tunnel, pass them by a big magnet, and then slam them against the wall. Sounds pretty simple, right? But if everything goes right, some of those particles might turn into mirror image versions of themselves and zap through that wall. And if that happens, it could be the first clue of a whole nother universe hanging out right next to ours. Now, this mirror world isn't like what you'd expect from the movies. There's no alternate versions of you or evil twins, but it could have its own physics, its own rocks and planets that are totally different from what we know. And the experiments at this university might be able to find it. At number 3 is Hoag's object. I think I pronounced that right. Imagine stumbling upon a galaxy that looks like a cosmic donut in the vastness of space. Meet Hoag's object, a weird eye-shaped galaxy that's unlike anything astronomers have ever seen before in our entire universe. Picture this, it's essentially a bright yellow older core surrounded by a ring of shiny young blue stars, but in between them, nothingness. Discovered in 1950 by astronomer Arthur Hoag, this galaxy left scientists scratching their heads. One theory suggests that maybe billions of years ago a smaller galaxy zoomed through the larger one, shaping this odd structure. But there are no signs of nearby galaxies that could have caused this, and the core spins way too slowly for such a collision. Adding to the galactic mystery, if you peek closely, hidden within Hoag's object, there's a smaller galaxy that takes the same eye-looking ring shape as its larger counterpart, right there where 1 o'clock would be if the galaxy were a giant cosmic clock. Yeah, you heard me right, a galaxy within another galaxy. Galaxy Inception. How did this cosmic oddity came to be? Who knows? Maybe parallel universes or something. At number 2, an asteroid from another system. Imagine you're this telescope-wielding astronomer dude scanning the skies in Hawaii, and suddenly you see this weird long thing zipping through space. That's Oumuamua, a name that's as bizarre as the thing itself. It's shaped like a giant space cucumber just cruising by. I mean, it's massive, probably a kilometer long, but crazy skinny given its length, only about 170 meters wide. And it's not from our neck of the cosmic woods. No, it's racing way too fast to be a part of our solar system's gang. Scientists think it rolled in during the Victoria era, but only God knows where it hung out before that. What's even stranger is that its sheer speed is a wonky trajectory, as it definitely doesn't behave by something that's bound to the sun's gravitational pull. This motion might be described if the object were a comet, as ice melts as it's approaching the sun, propelling the comet like a jet does a plane. But if that were the case, the flying giant space cucumber would have a visible tail as it leaves behind a trail of vapor pushing the object off course, but that just isn't the case. Cue the alien theories! Maybe it's a UFO with a solar sail getting pushed around by the sun's rays. But we can get even crazier. Some suggest that it might be from a whole other universe. I mean, think about it. Oumuamou's trajectory isn't just wonky because of the sun's gravity, it's almost as if there's something else tugging on it. Maybe it's from a place where the rules of space are totally different. At number 1 is the Anita experiment, the scientific discovery that proves the existence of parallel universes. The claim begins with a hook that would tingle the spidey senses of any sci-fi enthusiast. Imagine a remote research station in Antarctica where scientists diligently hunt for cosmic rays. Now that's intriguing enough on its own, but it gets even better. You see, since they were looking for cosmic rays, they had their instruments oriented towards the sky. That is, until researchers suddenly detected not one, but 2 signals shooting out of the ground beneath them, defying all logic. Because, you see, these rays of neutrinos are supposed to come from supernova, so it's super improbable that the rays are passing through the entire mass of the Earth without coming into contact with a single particle of matter, only to land on a tiny weather balloon in the sky. Literally impossible. To make sense of all this, scientists delved into over 40 papers offering a buffet of explanations. Dark matter, elusive particles called sterile neutrinos, and then, the grandest of them all, parallel universe. Essentially a mirror image of ours, but where time runs backwards. Imagine that. This audacious idea isn't pulled out of thin air either. It's rooted in actual science, a theorem which hints that alongside our universe, an antimatter universe stretches backwards through time before the Big Bang. But okay, let's just tap the brakes, because a more down-to-earth theory has also surfaced. That's right, hold your antimatter horses, because it turns out it's more likely that these signals were simply reflected off of ice or skipped off subglacial lakes. The truth, it seems, is more grounded, reflecting high-energy particles, not parallel dimensions. Sorry, y'all. I mean, unless you want to go ahead and put away Occam's razor, then definitely take the extra dimensions.
Coming up at our number 10 spot, we have cosmic inflation. The first half of this list is going to be some scientific explanations for parallel universes, but don't worry, the science won't get that complicated because then I wouldn't be able to understand it either. First, let's start off by talking about the theory of eternal inflation. This is the idea that ever since the Big Bang, the universe has been rapidly expanding or inflating, and different parts of the universe have been inflating at different rates. This means that there are some sections of the universe that haven't really connected up with the rest, yet creating a sort of bubble universe. While our own universe has inflated enough to breed galaxies and stars and physics and science and whatever else, these other bubble universes are still in the process of creation. They have the potential to be the exact same to ours, or completely different from ours. Or maybe there is a you in one bubble universe that didn't get that bad haircut that you still really regret. One time, my mom cut my hair like Marilyn Monroe. It was brutal. Coming up at our number 9 spot, we have mathematical constants. Similar to that theory is the fact that everything in our known universe can be explained with mathematical equations. Think the Pythagorean theorem. Scientists know that the structure of our universe can be broken down into our mathematical structure. Math, that is, as they call it, without human baggage. They believe that because of this, it is entirely possible to hypothesize that there are other universes out there that are based around different mathematical structures, each universe having their own laws and rules based off of the structure. So infinite mathematical structures means infinite universes, some being just slightly different and some being totally, completely different. Coming up in our number 8 spot, we have backwards universe. 2 years ago, in 2020, NASA discovered what they believe is evidence of a parallel universe, one that is more than a little bit different to ours. Their team, called Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, or ANITA, had been working on an experiment in, of course, Antarctica for a few years. A so-called cosmic ray detection experiment reportedly found particles that seemed to come from another universe, one that was also created when the Big Bang took place. While this evidence alone is pretty astounding, they also discovered that the particles appeared to be moving in reverse, leading them to believe that they had found evidence of a parallel universe where time moves backwards. While parallel universes are often just the work of science fiction and movies, we may be closer to finding the truth of the situation than we originally thought.
In our number 7 spot today, we have Point Nemo. I'm sure there's a few of us out there who dream of time alone, away from other people, and Point Nemo is exactly that. It's like a parallel universe where if you were to visit, you'd feel like you were the only person on Earth. This is the most remote location on Earth. It's officially known as the oceanic hole of inaccessibility because it is the furthest point away from land. This area is surrounded by more than 1,000 miles of ocean in every direction. There are obviously no humans who live even close to Point Nemo, which is why it is called that in the first place, Nemo being Latin for no one. This location is so isolated that the closest people to Nemo aren't even on this Earth. Since the inhabited areas closest to the point is over 1,000 miles away, the humans aboard the ISS are way closer than anyone on land. Truly just wild. Kind of sounds like a dream, kind of sounds like a nightmare. In our number 6 spot today, we have Kawah Ijen. Located in Indonesia, this is one of the most remarkable and interesting places on Earth. Firstly, this active volcano emits hot, flammable, sulfurous gases. These gases ignite as they enter the oxygen-rich atmosphere of Earth, and this causes them to burn with a stunning blue flame. Further scientific processes also allows for there to be a flow of molten sulfur that also has that same striking blue flame. At night is really when you get quite a show from this coloring, as it quite literally looks like a flow of blue lava. The other incredible thing about this location is that there is a 1 kilometer wide caldera that is filled with turquoise blue water. The watercolor, while it looks gorgeous, is a result of extreme acidity as well as a high concentration of dissolved metals. It is an astonishing place to look at and really is quite magnificent. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Devil's Kettle. This area is said to hold one of Minnesota's greatest mysteries. As the Brule River flows through in order to make its way toward Lake Superior, there is a point where it makes an 800-foot drop in 8 miles. Because of this journey through time, waterfalls have been created as the water erodes the rocky terrain. One waterfall in particular is the one that we want to talk about today. The stream splits into two as it falls over the edge. One of the two streams flows exactly how you would think it does, while the other is a little more mysterious. On this side, the water rushes into a cavern that seems to go nowhere. The cavern never fills up somehow, but no one can figure out where the water is going. It's a strange phenomena that has resulted in the fall gaining the nickname the Devil's Kettle. It is said that people have tried to place things in the water that might help show them where the water is flowing to, but despite these efforts, the items were just never seen again. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Pyramids of Giza. One of the most mysterious places on Earth has to be the Pyramids of Giza. I mean, how? For centuries, people have wondered and tried to find answers as to how they were built at all, let alone with limited resources and without the use of modern technology. And they've been around for the last 4,000 years, so the durability alone is outstanding. This alone is the source of much mystery, but that's only the outside of them. What lies on the inside might just be even more so. The Pyramids of Giza, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, were believed to have been built as tombs for rulers and other wealthy people. That totally makes sense, except for the fact that there hasn't been any mummies found inside of them. Instead, there is just a plethora of secret, unexplored rooms, hidden doors and mirrors, you know, just regular ancient Egypt stuff. Many of these secret rooms remain completely unexplored over fear of damage. One more strange thing about these incredible creations, before we move on though, they were built on the center of the Earth. However they did this, they aligned them perfectly with Orion's belt, with no technology, just pure brilliance. I'm just saying, if anywhere is going to take you to a parallel universe, these pyramids will take you back in time to a completely different world. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Crooked Forest. Forests are already creepy. This one looks like it's straight out of a Tim Burton film. The Crooked Forest in Poland. There's around 400 odd-shaped pine trees near the town Gryfino. These trees are about 90 years old, and all of them, from the base, they immediately bend towards the north and then slowly curve back towards the sky like the other trees. Despite the odd bend, these trees are otherwise healthy. There's been so many theories, but none of them really stick. Some suggest it was a gravitational anomaly, but that's a little too far-fetched for me. I don't know. This isn't Interstellar, right? Other theories claim that there were heavy snowfalls that would weigh down the branches, which could check out, but why is it just a select amount? I've also lived in Canada my entire life. We have lots of snow, and I've never seen a Sleepy Hollow tree before. My favorite theory is that farmers were trying to make the tree curved on purpose to make stronger wheels because the
grain direction would make for naturally curved wheels. Again though, nobody knows for sure. What are your thoughts? Do we like the wheel theory? I'm just gonna keep a spare tree tire just in case. Keep it stored safely in the trunk. Okay, jokes. I'm funny. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Catatumbo River. Basically, in western Venezuela, right over the Catatumbo River, there are these insane, intense lightning storms, and it's a complete atmospheric phenomenon. This lightning occurs 140 to 160 nights a year, 9 hours per day, and from 16 to 40 times per minute. That is absolutely insane. That is so much lightning. Another thing that's so fascinating about this lightning is that it is colorful, and it doesn't produce any thunder. The lightning does change its frequency up from time to time, and at one point it stopped for a few weeks, and people thought that maybe it was going to have been exhausted forever, but that changed when the lightning came back, putting it right back on our list of mysteries that we just can't quite figure out. Many people have studied the lightning, trying to figure out how exactly it has been created and what makes this phenomena what it is, but we just aren't quite sure yet. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the reverse waterfall. This mysterious and strange location is another one that comes from India. Here there is a waterfall, but it's got a catch. While we all of course expect to see water cascading down when we think of a waterfall, this strange location instead sees the water moving towards the sky. Some people believe it's because of some anti-gravitational force, others think it's due to the heavy air pressure, and I'm not a scientist, so I'll let you decide. While this is certainly quite a strange place, it also definitely delivers when it comes to beauty. I think even if the water flowed down like a normal waterfall, this area would still see a lot of tourists just because of the immense natural beauty.
Number 10. The London Hammer. Many times in history, people have found objects that they think could be evidence of a parallel universe intersecting with our own. Those thoughts were raised again when in 1936 a hammer was found in London, Texas. While on a walk, a couple found a hammer that looked like ones that had been used in the late 1800s. So cool, they found an old hammer. Well, there's actually much more to it. The hammer had not rusted at all and still hasn't since it's been found. And it was also found encased in rock that dated back to the Cretaceous period. For those of you who don't know, that's around 100 million years ago. This is obviously weird because most people agree that humans only started popping up around 200,000 years ago. So how could this hammer have come to exist? Some people believe that it's the remnant of a parallel universe where humans developed long before they did on our Earth, or that it had potentially traveled back in time. If you live in Texas and want to check out this infamous hammer for yourself, you can find it at Carl Bowe's Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. Number 9. Black holes. The existence of black holes is one of the greatest yet unexplained wonders of our universe, the first picture of a black hole only having been taken back in 2019. So how are they evidence of parallel universes? Well, let's get into some science here. Black holes are so hard to study because everything we've sent out there to try and get information is never seen again, people assuming that it's destroyed upon entering the hole. But Stephen Hawking said that whatever enters a black hole does come out, but it comes out in another universe. Because of the law of conservation of mass, even if something is destroyed, evidence of its presence would still be able to be seen. They would be visible in hair-like images that trace its path into the black hole. But Stephen Hawking noticed that evidence showed these hairs were not present, meaning the item has completely disappeared from our universe. And I'm really hoping this is making sense. Stephen Hawking says that this is good evidence that they have been transported to another universe, saying black holes are not the eternal prisons that we once thought. Number 8. Cloud City. In October of 2015, Chinese citizens were shocked by what appeared to be a floating city within the sky. Multiple people taking photos and videos of the cityscape that seemed to loom above them within the clouds. The shape was far too specific to brush it off as being anything man-made, and looked to clearly be a cloud city. People were left wondering what it could be, and theories popped up of parallel universes or even secret holographic technology. There was no time to answer these questions or speculate if it had even happened at all, as the exact same thing took place again in China in March of the following year. More photos and videos popping up again of the incident. Many people believe that this supposed city in the sky is evidence of another universe crossing over into our own. Feel free to take a look at the pictures for yourself and make your own decision.
In our number 7 spot today, we have observable universe. Now let's talk about what scientists believe about the shape of space. In your head, maybe you imagine a big sphere or even some sort of donut. but most likely it's actually flat. And it stretches out infinitely, like forever, never ending. And if it goes on forever, then at some point it has to start repeating, because there is a finite number of ways that particles can be arranged within space and time. So if you looked far enough, you would eventually find another version of you, maybe wearing a different shirt or eating something different for breakfast. Maybe a version of you that didn't watch this far in the video, but hey, we like this version of you better anyways. Unfortunately, it would be pretty hard to actually see this far down the universe because our observable universe only extends 13.7 billion light years, this being the amount of time light has had to travel since the Big Bang. So you can consider the space beyond our observable universe to be its own sort of separate universe, one that we just can't see yet and probably won't for a long time, if ever. In our number 6 spot we have time travel. Think about time travel for a second. Maybe you thought of Back to the Future. The concept of this movie is that if you go back in time and change one small thing, it can completely alter the future. Some scientists believe that time travel is a definite possibility in our future, so if it is, why haven't we seen anybody come back yet? And have they been screwing around and messing things up? Well, it's theorized that due to the way they would alter the universe, when time travelers go back in time, they actually create their own separate universe where things change. A parallel universe that works to include them in it. That would explain why we have never seen any real evidence of time travelers coming back to our current time, or even any point in the past, because they did not travel back in time in our universe, but instead to their own unique one. Am I melting your brain yet? Let's move on to some simpler stuff. In our number 5 spot we have different life. For the second half of our list, we are going to be stepping away from science and taking a look at some people's stories of their experiences with glitches in the Matrix that may lend evidence to there being parallel or multiple universes. One day, a man was in his house when he became overcome with the urge to go outside and stand on his lawn. For a moment, he said he had the clearest feeling ever before he felt a slight wobble and everything began feeling slightly distorted. When it was over and he turned to go back inside, he saw his car in the driveway, the same make and model, but a different colored car. But that wasn't the only thing that was different. When he saw his wife, he said that she definitely looked like his wife, but he just had this feeling that she was different. He also started having memories that weren't his, and seeing buildings that, there was no way he could have never noticed in his time living there. Entire departments from his work no longer existing. Is it possible this man jumped to a parallel universe where his life was only slightly different? Maybe. In our number 4 spot we have wrong memory. This one is a story of a false memory, seeming like an intense version of the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect being when a large group of people all share a false memory of something, which we mentioned in detail on the previous list. This person says that they vividly remember someone they know dying in a car accident, texting and driving and going off an exit ramp that was still under construction. They remember themselves and their family and friends attending the funeral and everyone in their small town talking about it for weeks. Skip to 10 years later. Even the person's fiance knew about it and knew the person's name because of how many times they had told the story. One day their fiance is looking at their sister's Facebook page and says, "Hey, isn't that the girl who died?" The person came over to look, and it turns out that it was. Apparently also no one in the town after this incident had any memory of the car accident or the funeral that took place afterwards. So did this person potentially have a memory from a parallel universe where the accident had taken place? It's possible. Coming up in our number 3 spot we have disembodied voice. People who believe strongly in multiverses and parallel universes usually believe that there are some places and occasions where the gaps between our universes are thinner, and it is easier for things to cross over or for the universes to communicate with each other. This story seems like one of those moments where the barrier was thin. When this person was around the age of 10, they were going to the beach with their aunt and friends when they were divided between 2 different cars. One of the cars didn't know the directions, so they were following behind the other car. When suddenly, it took a sharp turn and they had to follow and do the same, going around a very sharp bend. Suddenly, they all heard a very loud, clear voice in the car saying, "Sharp bend, The driver of the car hit the brakes as they all looked at each other confused, confirming there was no one else in the car that had said that. There wasn't even anyone close by outside the car who could have said it. So maybe it was someone managing to speak through the thin barrier between the universes, or was it a ghost? You decide." In our number 2 spot, we have the motorcycle crash. Sometimes people experience situations where the impossible seems to happen, and maybe it is impossible, but only in our current universe. This person told their story of a death-defying crash. 6 years ago, they were riding through town on a motorcycle going about 45 miles per hour. Suddenly, a woman who hadn't seen them turned left out in front of them, and despite the short amount of time, they remembered thinking about their options, whether they should go over or under the car. They laid the bike down and slid underneath the car diagonally. They slid across the pavement, no helmet, no jacket, just jeans and a hoodie. They slid about 80 feet before they stopped and were then able to stand up. No injuries, except a hole in their sweater, their bike having been completely mangled and torn apart. They knew that there was no way that they should have survived the crash, but somehow they did. A potential glitch in the matrix of the universe? Possibly. In our number 1 spot, we have takeout. Have you ever heard of Schrodinger's cat? Me either. The idea that if you put a cat inside a box with a bottle of poison, the cat is in a state of being both living and dead until you open the box and find out. Well, it turns out that, the food you ordered last night, your takeout, is also in a state of being your order and not your order until you open it up and find out. A man and his friend went to a Chinese restaurant where they ordered a chicken dinner and a shrimp dinner. When they received their boxes and opened them both, they realized that they had received 2 shrimp dinners. No big deal, just a mix-up. So they close the boxes and get ready to go ask for a replacement. But before they do, the friend opens the first box again, and instead of the shrimp dinner they had clearly seen before, it was now a chicken dinner, what they had originally ordered. They knew what they had both clearly seen. Was it possible that for a few seconds they had received their lunch from a parallel universe where they had ordered something else? Maybe.